Hello everyone, it's SpawnPoiint and today we are finally going to be comparing these two TVs. So we've got LG's 2024 G4 OLED on the left and LG's 2023 G3 OLED on the right. Both are 65 inches and share a lot of the same features. But is it worth spending a little more for the newer TV? And is it worth upgrading if you already have last year's model? Well, today I'm going to compare the two side by side and talk about the picture quality, brightness, gaming on the PS5 and Xbox, and highlight some new features that you might not be aware of. I have linked to both of these TVs down in the description, along with everything that I show you in today's video. But as always, any questions you've got, just drop those in the comments and I will get back to you. So straight out of the box, these two TVs visually look almost identical. They share the same design with the incredibly thin bezels and the brushed metal frame around the sides. And to be honest, you would struggle to tell the two apart even when they're side by side. But that's not a bad thing, as the G3 was already a great looking TV. But the biggest change with this year's G4 model is the stand. So previously, the Gallery Edition TVs would only come with a wall bracket in the box to give you that virtually no gap look. Whereas this year, we get to choose either a tabletop stand or the wall bracket depending on how you wish to use it. This is only available on the 55 and 65 inch versions, but the fact we get this choice is awesome. So for today's video, I've opted for a tabletop stand as I wanted to show you how it works and what it does. So inside the box we get several pieces, including the metal base, the main support arm and the bracket which will go on the back of the TV. And then it's just a case of fitting these three pieces together, and from here you can decide if you want to have the TV sitting higher or lower with the two different height options. And then installing it is easy, as you just need to use the packaging to temporarily hold the TV while you fit the stand. And that's it, we're done. Now the G3 on the other hand doesn't come with a tabletop stand in the box, as we get that wall bracket instead. So to make this a side-by-side video, I've gone ahead and purchased a third-party stand instead. Now I've been using both of these TVs side by side for the last week, and let me tell you, they look incredible. But it's not really surprising, as we're talking about one of the best TVs from 2023 and 2024. So over the last week, I've played a mixture of content on here, including movies and games, to see how the two would compare. I didn't think there would be much of a difference between the two. Now, even though these two screens share similar features, including 4K, 100% colour fidelity, and incredible contrast ratios thanks to them both being OLED, there is one difference that sets them apart, and that's the brightness. So this year, LG have upgraded the Brightness Booster Max, which we also saw in the G3, but they've gone even brighter. The G3 had a full screen brightness boost of about 70% over the B3, whereas this year the G4 is able to increase the peak brightness to 150% in a 3% window. Now before I switched this on, I didn't think I would see that much of a difference. I've been using the 77-inch G3 for a year, so jumping to the G4 surely wouldn't make that much of a difference. Well, I was wrong. And seeing the two side by side really shows how much brighter the G4 is in certain conditions. So here, if I show you the same content on both TVs, where the G4 is on the left and the G3 is on the right, you should hopefully be able to see clearly the difference in the brightness, especially in the white writing of this logo. But it's not just the white areas or the text that I've noticed, it's the colours as well. The screen itself is noticeably brighter with the same settings on both TVs. And I would say the single biggest advantage of a brighter screen is it means you can watch this and use it during the day or in a well-lit room. I've actually found myself dialing it back at night, as the G4 does get very bright, so I find around 80% brightness is usually best for at night. Another big setting they've added this year is the professional mode under dynamic tone mapping. This now gives us full control over how we want the tone mapping to perform, essentially giving you control over the highlights in 1000, 4000 and 10,000 nits. Sure, this won't be used by everyone, but it works across all modes, including game mode as well. We of course still have HGIG if you'd rather use that for gaming, but if you do use that, it will disable the professional mode once enabled. Not only that, but you can now use filmmaker mode in Dolby Vision mode as well, so movies or shows you're watching in HDR will look exactly as the director intended. On the G3, you would either have to choose one or the other, whereas the G4 now supports both at the same time, so that's pretty cool. And then there's the black levels. So as you would expect on both of these TVs, they have incredible black levels and contrast. And if I'm being honest, neither of these do it better than the other, as they both offer that infinite contrast and jet blacks. So the G4 can't really improve upon the G3 in that area. Although because it's brighter, it kind of looks better anyway. Now whether it's gaming or movies, every dark scene looks inky black and you're not losing any detail either. So here's the classic OLED test that I always do to show off how good the black areas or the dark areas look, which also just reinforces how good the highlights are as well. In the past, you would have to worry about black crush where the dark areas of the screen normally lose the detail, but that is not the case here. If there's details in those dark areas, they will still be shown. But with those dark scenes, you do need to think about reflections, which for me the G series TVs are leagues ahead of the others. I said this in my full review as well, but the dark tint of these screens is so much better than what we've seen on other OLED TVs. Sure, you're going to see windows and lights as the screen is glossy rather than matte, but it's not as mirror-like as other OLEDs. This means watching it during the day isn't as bad as you might first expect, and provided you don't have a window directly opposite your TV, you'll be fine. And because both of these TVs have a similar coating, there's no real difference between the two. Now, before I got the G3 last year, I actually had the C1 OLED, and I can tell you now the difference between the G series and the C series really is noticeable when it comes to those reflections. Okay, so when it comes to watching movies, these TVs look incredible. They both offer 4K and HDR, and more importantly, Dolby Vision support. This means any movies or TV shows that you watch that offer this will give you the best possible brightness and highlights for the content. In fact, I often go looking for HDR content to watch as it looks so much better than SDR. Now, normally I would use a 77-inch TV in here for that immersive experience, but you know what, the 65-inch is probably the most common size to go for, which is one of the reasons I'm using the 65 inches today. Also, it is far easier to have two 65 inches side by side rather than two 77s. But as mentioned before, the G4 now supports Filmmaker mode while using Dolby Vision, so this means you can enable both settings at the same time. I'll often use Filmmaker mode for those nighttime movies, as it does dim the screen slightly as well. Right, let's talk about gaming. So the easiest way to show you these TVs at the same time is to use one of these splitters. This gives us 4K and HDR support, so we can test both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X at the same time. I have linked to it below if you want to pick one of these up for yourself, but they are about £30 on Amazon. Okay, so both of these TVs offer most of the same features when it comes to gaming. So that's HDMI 2.1, 120Hz, low input lag, VRR, ALLM, AMD FreeSync Premium, and Nvidia's G-Sync. So whether you're gaming on console or PC, these will tick every box that you need. However, this year the LG G4 does come with a new feature which is 144Hz support. So if you are a PC gamer, you get to increase the refresh rate from 120 to 144, and that is pretty cool to see on a TV. So over the last week, I've been playing loads of different games on both the PS5 and the Xbox, and I've tried to compare the two to see how they both look. And unsurprisingly, the first thing that I noticed with the G4 that it is brighter, and putting them both at 100% brightness, I could clearly see the difference in certain scenes. But it's not just the overall brightness of the screen, it's the colours as well. I'm finding the G4 to be a little bit more punchy even though they've got the same settings enabled. And when it comes to motion, well, both of these TVs perform exactly the same way. So that VRR is giving us a buttery smooth experience on both the screens where there's no stuttering or screen tearing at all. But don't forget, the LG G3 was already a great TV with no issues, so it's hard for the G4 to try and improve on that anyway. And then I tried some darker games to see how the highlights and the dark areas would look, and as you'd expect, the G4 is slightly brighter, but the black levels are exactly the same on both panels. Now, I would assume that most people who play games like Call of Duty will play this on a monitor, but you don't have to with these OLED TVs, as to be honest, they are faster than most monitors out there. The near instant response, the 120Hz and VRR support means these are perfect for playing FPS games as well. Then we have the Game Optimizer. This is something that we've had for the last few years on the LG TVs, and I've always been a huge fan of this. So by tapping the settings button on the remote while in game mode, you'll get this pop-up. Both TVs have the same interface, so we get quick access to things like the current frame rate, if VRR is on, and a few others as well. You can also tab through the different picture profile modes depending on the game you're playing, and overall this gives you a different brightness and contrast levels. But looking around the other settings, I don't see any differences here other than that 144Hz mode. So other than that, both the G3 and the G4 are exactly the same. Now, one of the biggest changes we've seen this year with the LG G4 is the new processor. So last year, the G3 came with the Alpha 9 Gen 6 processor, whereas the G4 comes with the Alpha 11 AI processor. This is what gives us improved AI Picture Pro and AI Sound Pro features, as the new processor essentially improves the performance and the processing speed. So first up is the AI Picture Pro. There's a feature called AI Super Upscaler that is designed to take the image on screen and fine-tune the resolution to make it even better. It uses AI picture processing to improve the sharpness and image on the fly, so that's pretty impressive. Now, I normally tweak the picture settings myself, so I would start with something like ISF Expert Bright or the Cinema mode, then I adjust the picture profile from there. But if you'd rather just let the TV take care of it for you, it does have something called AI Picture Wizard. Now what this does is it shows you 6 sets of different images, and you simply choose the image that you like the best. And based on the colours and the sharpness that you chose, at the end it will create a custom profile just for you. You can then apply this to different apps and different HDMIs on your TV. And another feature is the AI Sound Pro improvements. So the G4 now has the option for a virtual 11.1.2 channel setup, and this was not available on the G3. This means if you're not using a soundbar or home theatre kit, we're getting slightly better sound on the G4 with the downfiring speakers. They also support Dolby Atmos, which means that any TV shows or movies that you watch that has this enabled will sound even better, although Dolby Atmos is also on the G3 as well. But have a listen to this clip where you should hopefully be able to hear the difference between the two TVs, where the G4 sounds that little bit louder and clearer. Another feature included with the AI Sound Pro is AI voice remastering, and that's designed to improve the voices in those noisy environments using AI on the fly. There's also dynamic sound booster and adaptive sound control, and that adapts the content you're watching using AI. And if you toggle this setting on and off under the AI, it will give the voice volume a nice boost. Okay, so every year the new TVs come out with an updated WebOS or user interface, and this year we have WebOS 24. Now, to be honest, seeing the two side by side, they are nearly identical. There's also no noticeable difference in speed as you navigate around the menus. So when you press the home button on the remote control, we get this screen. And on here we have the quick cards across the top, which includes home, office, game and music. These categorize various apps into one place. So if we look at the game card, this shows us the list of apps that you can use for gaming on the TV. So things like Nvidia GeForce Now and some others as well. And what's great about both of these TVs for gaming is you can literally game on one of these without a PC or a console. Just connect your controller via Bluetooth and you're ready to game. But then back on the home screen, we of course have all of the usual apps like Netflix, Prime, Apple TV and YouTube. Oh, and down at the bottom there is now a tiny preview window for the live TV or the last HDMI input that you were using. And under settings, the G4 now has a chatbot icon where you can use this for answering questions or getting general help on the TV. So it takes you through various prompts to hopefully try and answer your issues. But something LG have confirmed for their 2024 model is their new Renew program. This means that every year for the next 5 years, this TV will be updated with new features, which means it should stay up to date for much longer. As for the warranty, well, the LG G4 does come with something called the OLED Care Plus, and that is a 5-year warranty provided by LG. This will give you the first year on parts and labour, and then years 2 to 5 on just the parts. And another question I get asked a lot is, would you be concerned about OLED burn-in? Well, both of these TVs do come with OLED Care settings, and that should help prevent those issues. So if you go to General and then OLED Care, we get things like pixel cleaning, where it will check and adjust every pixel on the screen. There's also Screen Move, which will regularly move the entire image. There's logo brightness and care recommendations. So all of these are designed to help prevent or reduce OLED panel issues, which to be honest, I have personally never had an issue with any OLED TV or monitor that I've had. So having used the G3 and the G4 side by side for the last week, what are my final thoughts? Well, being completely honest, they are 90% the same. You could buy either of these and you would be happy with the picture quality, gaming features, reflection handling and the overall design. I mean, they look practically the same. However, if you wanted a slightly brighter TV with the option of a tabletop stand, 144Hz, improved image quality thanks to those AI features, then the G4 is the one to go for. It also has the Dolby Vision with filmmaker support and the 5-year Renew program. If you were buying new today, you could definitely save some money by going for the G3, but the G4 will stay up to date for longer. Whether it's worth the upgrade if you've already got a G3, I guess that comes down to your own situation. But to give you an idea, I did personally sell my 77-inch G3 and then I bought the 77-inch G4 and I'm really happy with it. The brightness boost alone was worth the change for me. So there you have it, 2 of the best LG OLED TVs which look awesome. And out of these 2, which would you pick? Now drop a nice OLEDs in the comments and I'll give you a thumbs up for staying right till the end. And if you did enjoy today's video, check out my full review video next, as it covers the LG G4 in greater detail. Well, thanks for watching, please like, subscribe and follow me everywhere. Until next time.